Now, I think one of the first bigger blockchain implementations that was actually visible to a broader audience was the experiment that Albert Heijn did with Refresco. As a consumer, you were able to scan a QR code of a fresh orange juice and trace it back all to the grower in South America. Very interesting experiments, and we have one of the partners that were working with Albert Heijn and Refresco on implementing this system and implementing also further systems. I mean, this was just a little experiment. But the new fork is on a mission to optimize the entire global food supply chain and improve food integrity. Really, really excited to hear from these guys. Welcome. Are you with us? Just checking. Yeah, there you are. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So great to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, can you maybe give a short introduction? I just gave a little introduction about the new fork, the work that you did with Albert Heijn, Refresco. What are you guys doing exactly?
Yeah, sure. Well, my name is Kirsten Coppoolse. I'm COO of the New Fork. And at New Fork, we bring blockchain to the agri-food sector because, of course, you hear of many financial use cases for blockchain, and luckily today we hear of some others, for example, the fashion use case. But we think agri-food actually is the place where it makes most sense to implement blockchain. And blockchain for agri-food is blockchain for supply chains. So with agri-food, with blockchain, you create transparency in agri-food supply chains. So you track a product from the producer all the way to the consumer. And if you have the location information, you can attach attributes to it. So for example, sustainability claims. And at the New Fork, we created our open public blockchain solution called Open Food Chain. And that is something we implement in industries. So for example, we've implemented that in the juice industry, as you said before. First, we experimented indeed in the project you mentioned, and that grew into a new project called Juicy Chain, where we've implemented open food chain with competitors in the juice industry. So that's quite new and exciting, and that was possible because we went for open public blockchain.
Wow, interesting stuff. So I read indeed about the juice chain, which is like more after the experiment with Albert Heijn. Now it's like a global platform where a lot of juice makers are actually collaborating, right?
Yes, yeah, and more to be onboarded. So for the off-chain governance, we advise the parties in Juicy Chain to create a foundation, so stichting. And that foundation is currently headed by two competitors, namely Fresco and Ecosgranini, and they make the off-chain decisions here. So that's really cool, I think.
Really cool. Now, and is it only about juices? Because we were talking about the agricultural sector quite broad, right? I mean, are you now only focusing as a New Fork on juices or also other agricultural products?
Oh, definitely also other agricultural products. So Juicy Chain is, of course, an example, a use case that we can communicate about, but there's other industries that we are focusing on and trying to get products off the ground. And often that's the industries where there is an issue that's not to be solved by one company.
Can you give an example?
Go ahead.
Can you give some examples? Like what kind of products?
So as the New Fork, we organize Strike 2, and in Strike 2, we bring together decision makers in the agri-food industry to work on pressing issues. And some of the issues we've addressed there are, for example, deforestation in soy, circularity in bread, living wage in coffee, for example. So often those industries are the ones that could benefit. So for us, new industries that we're looking at the moment are, for example, soy, indeed, it's fish, for example, shrimps, but also coffee, cacao, eggs. And of course, that doesn't exclude any industries. And even for us, agri-food is, of course, a broader spectrum. So we are not excluding fashion, for example, because cotton, for example, is also grown, but also on the other side, beauty, for example, or more medical industry.
Yeah. Interesting. Now I've read about all the great implementations that you already did. You're doing using blockchain, of course. I mean, that's one of like the foundation technologies that you as the new fork are using. But you're also combining other technologies, right? Like IoT, AI. How does this work? Can you give like a short example? How does this work in juice, in coffee, or how are you using multiple technologies?
So, of course, an issue with blockchain is garbage in is garbage out. So, if you have users manually inputting data, that could, of course, compromise your data quality because people make mistakes. So, we like to extract data from other oracles as much as possible. So, we create custom APIs to extract data from, for example, farm management systems and ERP systems. But it's also possible to use IoT devices to extract data from and to have measuring data, and there's no human input needed there. But another possibility, of course, is using AI and other new technologies. And we're often exploring with different tech partners to see how we can work together on projects to indeed minimize the risk of human error.
Cool. Wow. Now, you're working on all kinds of implementations now in the Netherlands. Well, from my perspective, I would say everybody's really enthusiastic about this, right? I mean, we saw the example of the orange juice, how easy it can be for the consumer. First of all, how do consumers actually respond? Did you already do a test? Because I can see on the one hand, some consumers are quite enthusiastic, right? They can finally track trace products back to the origin and really see if it is biological stuff, if it's, it has all the ingredients that it's supposed to be. But how do consumers actually respond? Are they positive, or do they see this just as a funny gimmick, or?
Well, of course, there's different consumers. So for many people in the general public, blockchain is a synonym to Bitcoin. So there's definitely some education needed on blockchain and its possibilities. And of course, agri-food sector that we focus on is also not the most technological driven sector. So often for our clients, they also need a bit of education on the possibilities of blockchain. And of course, as a consumer, if you want to do your grocery shopping on a busy Saturday morning, then you're not going to scan all the products. So often consumers scan once, and it's more that it's possible to check the proofs than that they have to check it every time. And of course, NGOs and the media are the ones that are really diving into indeed the underlying proofs in the blockchain.
Yeah. Now, and on the other side, I'm curious to learn from farmers, for example, because I read about chickens on the chain in Brabant, like farmers that are really active by putting, like, for example, chicken meat and chickens on the blockchain. How are farmers in general responding to this, and supermarkets?
Yeah, well, often if I give a presentation, I share a picture of the administration that a farmer that we know quite well has, and it's an explosion of paper files, and then he has 3 different systems that he works with. So farmers really, and this is a Dutch farmer, so farmers can really benefit here from more easy to use systems and less clutter, both physical and digitally. And in developing countries, there, of course, often isn't a system in place. So blockchain is a way to really start gathering data and also to build upon that in the future. So they, for the first time, of course, can, for example, show that they get an income. So maybe they can use it to get some loans or microfinancing. So that's really a big step forwards. I think your question had another part, but I kind of got distracted by farmer part.
You're just sharing it with us really enthusiastically. I'm just curious to learn, from the other side. I mean, of course, consumers, they could be interested in tracing the origin of their products, but on the other side, supermarkets and farmers, are they actually enthusiastic about putting his products on the blockchain, making the supply chain transparent?
Well, farmers, of course, is the side indeed that's the farthest away from the consumer. And they often have to send a lot of information up the supply chain because, of course, they need to have certain attributes that they communicate. And currently, information flows one way, namely from the farmer to the next steps in the supply chain, to the retailer, to the consumer. And farmers would like to know more about what's happening to their product so they can adapt and use that information to create a better product. So farmers are enthusiastic about this. And also, of course, linking the farmer to the consumer opens up all kinds of possibilities. For example, for the consumer to tip the farmer. So instead of that you tip your waiter, you can also tip your farmer if you really enjoyed a cup of coffee. So that's pretty cool. And I think for retailers, they just, I think, feel a need for a better ESG risk management and better communication to their consumer. So they definitely see that the consumer is demanding more from the product, so more sustainability claims, more proofs on that, and I think they are happy to provide that.
Wow. Really interesting stuff. Now, you mentioned education. What are other hurdles that you still have to take? What are other hurdles when it comes to the implementation? Is it really more about education of farmers, educating consumers? Is it about the regulation? Kirsten, what is like the biggest hurdle that you're currently facing?
Well, education is definitely one. So indeed, companies making a decision on implementing blockchain might not know blockchain and all its possibilities. And of course, if you're starting a blockchain solution, you should really have a goal in mind. So what information do you want to communicate? Because you can't just start and communicate everything. I mean, something we say often is blockchain is not a database, of course. You do it for a certain purpose. And I think another hurdle is budgets, because there is no set budget, blockchain budget within companies. No. And often R&D doesn't have the biggest budget. So there really needs to be leadership with a vision within a company, and we, as said before, we prefer to involve much of the supply chain and even competitors if possible. So that really should be someone that has the impact in his or her industry to get this going.
Now you're talking about budgets. Curious to learn from your side, what is next for the new fork in the upcoming year? I heard you're also working on a own token, right? Is that right?
That is right. Yeah. So it's a very exciting time for us. So of course, first of all, we want to expand to multiple industries, and I've mentioned a couple of the industries that we're currently looking at to you. And indeed, we are planning a token sale. So currently we're in a pre-seed stage. So we're talking to VC investors. And of course, at some point in time, we will do a public launch, but there's no date decided there yet. But it's very interesting times. Now is the time for us to scale.
Time to scale. Wow, exciting times. And also, you know, I mean, the work that you're doing and the work that you've done, it's incredible. It has a direct impact also on our Dutch society. Also exciting developments coming up. We're definitely going to follow you. What is the website again? thenewfork.com, right?
Yes.
Where we can follow all the exciting developments. Thank you so much, Kirsten, for joining us at the Dutch Blockchain Week, and hope to see you back next year.
Thank you.